So this talks, I like this talk a lot just because it's a little bit more of a personal tale and DevOps woes. So hopefully you guys can empathize with some of my just starting days of early day Tomcat, and then overall evolution into more of like Kubernetes and like Docker swarms. So just basically giving you guys some fun tale around that. And for those that you don't know, I love Ninja Turtles. Who here has heard of Ninja Turtles before? Hopefully everybody. Yeah, I hope so. Right? But I do have a favorite Ninja Turtle, and I have to deal with the classic opening. But Raphael, right? Everybody's got a favorite, but he was my favorite Ninja Turtle. I remember seeing him and going, man, that dude's just got attitude. He's taking charge of the situation, and he's the best, right? I just loved him. I felt like he was a little jealous at times of Leonardo, because he was just like, dude, what the hell? But truthfully, I compare kind of Raphael to my my first experience with DevOps, which is his cat, Tomcat. But what's cool about this guy is I just remember going like, oh man, now that I've done all this Java programming, now it's time to actually stand this up on a server. So I remember getting access to an Apache server and going, okay, like let's put Tomcat on this. So I put Tomcat on this, and I don't know if you guys ever done this where you get a call and your server's dead, and it's like, wait, what? I didn't even do it. Like 6 people logged into this application and it's already failing. What's going on? And I didn't want to tote myself as being like a Tomcat debug expert, but I ended up becoming that. And one of the things that I found out is this Tomcat said like, yo, bro, I've got options. And I remember seeing this and going, dude, why isn't it just built into the server? Why did I have to go do guessing games to figure out that I needed to expand the memory of the server or expand the number of threads? So being able to actually quickly identify those options was like a huge challenge for me, and I just was also in the knee deep of doing IIS server pools, server pools, application pools. But it's my attempt at humor. But being able to troubleshoot .NET 1.1 and VB scripts to we talked about back-end infrastructure, things running on VB scripts. Can you imagine that? Like having to just go back and look at some of the code that I had to write. I'm just like, oh man, who the hell wrote this? And then you look at the author, you're like, oh, okay, of course it was me. But being able to keep these things alive, there was a huge challenge, right? I mean, I remember having to physically rack Linux servers and then spinning up a new node and oh yeah, we need to scale this to the UK. Okay. Thank God ESX comes out in virtual machines, because there was basically no way to keep these things in sync without doing some complicated stuff. But then over time you get Teenage Mutant Ninja X to wrap the services, and I don't know if you guys have ever messed with Rails before, but Rails and Node is just kind of my next evolution as far as my experience with DevOps. So it gets a little better. I need to be able to still pass some options and have some explicit, where is the actual domain or server host that I'm going to do, what's the IP address. But Rails S, poof, the server's up and running. You have to find out configuration options. Everything has its nuances, but it's gotten a lot better from memory management and being able to do a lot of things behind the scenes. Tomcats, I don't give Tomcat a bad rap. It's gotten better over the years. But now all of a sudden there's a way to basically handle server side and front end, but maybe I need to have some upstream conversations. So I got to be a little bit more familiar with Nginx and Node. So a couple caveats there is, everybody always says like, oh, it works in my development machine. And I remember getting like just, oh, hey, this is the production environment, and it's like all development flags. Like one of the things is like, dude, that's great, but it's bloated. All of a sudden this JavaScript file is 10 megs. Who's gonna load that? And especially if it's a mobile site, don't have it so just bloated infrastructure. Like consolidate this, make this very fast. So just PSA. Make sure to do production runs of your code. But you look at the evolution of like RAF, over time, like starts to get a little interesting and a little edgier. And I thought this was a pretty good representation of RAF. He's blocky. They even redid the classic arcade game with this Raphael. So it's like a modern touch to an older problem. So Jenkins comes out, and that's a new way for you to do basically server builds or application builds. Do interesting things along the way, like notify Slack channels, keeping the teams in check. But before, it was me having to write scripts to keep things in line. And this is my favorite thing, because I wrote a script that said literally like, do not run this script right before I left, because it was just an evaluation of something that could happen. They call me like 2 weeks later and they say like, hey, we ran it. We ran the do not run script. I'm like, dude, it's literally in the file name, don't run it. Don't run this file. And so they ran it, and it disabled all the users and just wrote all these crazy logs. So yeah, the point is then I had to, the responsibility is on you, and there's no visibility. Like if I left the company, they have no insight to that script, or there's no real standard as far as like building that infrastructure. So that got a lot better. Jenkins really, or whatever building mechanism you're using, there are ways to redo these like scripts and do them more effectively. And then also, you take advantage of virtualization. Like I love Docker. I love the fact that it's like always a clean version of an operating system, and it's like isolated. But there's like a little bit of a concern in my, it keeps me up at night to know that like all I have to do is just get onto that host, and I can just do Docker, inspect this and just go, what environment variables are running? Oh, any client secrets in there? Or, I want to perform all these executions. So, I mean, you still have to just lock those servers down. It's on you. The security team's usually like, okay, Ryan's just going to play in the DevOps sandbox, so let's let him play. But they're not typically conscious of the fact that like, hey, I mean, if that's the biggest takeaway of today is like keep your credentials safe. So make sure you're doing that process very, very cleanly, and then also get buy-in from security, because there's nothing worse than letting that stuff get into the wrong hands. And then, as we evolve, right, even Raphael evolves. Whatever you're going to choose, whether you use Terraform or Chef or any of these modern stacks, just basically know what you're getting into, or you could be like Michael Bay and end up blowing shit up, right? I mean, this doesn't even look like Raphael now. In my mind, this doesn't even look like what I pictured him. It's not even close. And then the future and beyond, what our conception of DevOps is now is going to be completely changed in the future. Like, this guy doesn't even look like Raph. Right? He's not even holding size. This was a huge disappointment for me, but maybe I need to just kind of step back and broaden my horizons and go, what is a better way of doing this? Is this all serverless architecture? Should I adopt that? So getting into, again, a really strong message there, which is whatever you decide on, whatever your stack is, get your entire team's buy-in, because and if you're responsible for deploying whatever developers red-headed stepchild or whatever you want to call it, whatever their creation that they've now created, make sure that they're fully aware of what it means to keep this up and running and then scale. Because again, that same concept of it works on my dev just doesn't fly. I need to be able to just like, hey, bring this developer here so that we can get this up and running for prod. I did that a number of times in my career, and it was just super beneficial to just basically have the talking points between the two. And pretty much that's my tale. The other thing that I'm going to do, this is like, so appropriate for today. This pizza destroyed my life. This is literally a real story. I was in a costume. I dressed up as Robin for Halloween, and then I had a deployment that lasted like 36 hours. So things have gotten better now that you can just push buttons on AWS consoles and spin up a whole environment or tear things down. So just try not to be this guy. Be the cool Raph. Don't be buried in your work. But I do. We are giving away a Ninja Turtle, but I have to bring it up here because it's hilarious. because it has on the label for it, it says shell opens for storage. And I was like, wait a second, like DevOps, like I gotta Linux get in there to get more storage for this device. So I thought that was just, I didn't even know that was on the label when I bought this, but this is giving this away. And random question for anybody, it's a simple trivia question. Who voiced this Raphael in the pretty recent animated series? If no one knows the answer, then I have a backup question. Probably no one. I'll give you a hint. He is one of the co-stars of the Lord of the Rings franchise.
The Hobbit?
The Hobbit isn't correct, sorry. Negative 10 tickets. No, so, does anybody know when the first animated series was released? It was a specific year.
Would have been like 90.
Close.
1987.
87 is the correct answer. The guy who voiced this version of Raph was Sean Astin, aka Rudy, aka Samwise Gamgee. Why I love that is the fact that I actually got to meet him. He's awesome, right? As him voicing Raphael, just like, oh, dude, you couldn't have picked a nicer person to be the rude, crude dude. But again, you never judge a book by its cover. You never judge a development environment by its cover either. So, but yeah, this is purely my tale, and I hope you just took away some just inspiring things about how you're doing tech selects. Really, just when you're evaluating the next wave of DevOps, to just also just kind of work closely with your systems engineers teams and make sure that everybody has buy-in. That's super crucial to be able to do. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.